Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Digital Access Show. Today, I'm joined by Patrick Dillon of Chapter One Employment. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you.
Patrick, I'm really in this episode. We're focusing on disability employment and the fact that right now we know employers are looking for employees. And we know there's that statistic that says there's 20% of people in Australia that have a disability.
Yep.
And I think your co-worker, Rebecca, said it was 38% of people with disability live below the poverty line.
Yes, that's correct. Yes. Yep.
What is the reason that we can give employers to stay on, have a listen, where we're talking with various people about employing people with disability? What can we give them to say, hey, have a listen, hear what we've got to say?
Yeah. So look, when we're doing work, I'm a placement specialist with Chapter One Employment, and I've been working with them for over 3 years now. Yes, and we do probably about 80% we do with disabilities. I mean, disabilities can be something seen by the eye, but also something that some of these employees or these clients that we get, they might have disabilities that aren't so commonly seen, and just in the background, it could be depression or something else.
Yeah.
So look, so we get these clients on board. They and employment providers give us a list of these people, and and what we do is then we try to then focus solely on them and getting them a job. Now, normally with employment providers, they sort of help these clients, with their resumes and sort of with their self-esteem and getting a job ready. But we sort of do it the other way, where we're sort of like we're engaging with employers and trying to sort of break that barrier from the employer to the employee. Um, so, giving them, we're building a rapport with some organisations, firstly, and then sort of saying, okay, look, there's different incentives for hiring people with disabilities. Like there may be a government wage subsidy, and most of the time we just need to sort of get them in the front door. Once we get them in the front door, some of these people with disabilities, their work ethic is second to none. Like they just want to work, they want to get a job, and they want to work. But it's just getting them. And I think sometimes nothing taken away from employers, but they're just sometimes a bit scared of, are they taking on, what are they taking on? Is it going to be, they're trying to, I suppose, protect their business, but would love to sort of be involved in the inclusion sort of side of things.
Yeah,
So,
excellent.
so we're sort of just trying to sort of break down those walls, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And most of the time that we do get someone there, like these guys, some of these employees are quite happy because they're like, well, these guys are, they work well and all that stuff, and it's nothing to do with. It's just some people with disabilities, they just want to get out there and they've actually got quite a good work ethic and drive to work and to get to work, and it also helps their lifestyles as well.
Yeah, Patrick, yeah, that you've made some good points. So let's go and run the podcast. Let's see, we've talked to Mark Muscat about the interview process and the extra challenges that people have. We've talked to you actually about the technology that you use and how technology makes things very accessible and doable. We've talked to Rebecca Djokovic, who's your colleague, about how you guys work with employers. We've talked to Brendan Somerville from Spinal Life, again, about how he works with employers. And then finally, we're talking to Paula Burgess from Beyond the Maze, who is a business owner herself, and the adjustments that she makes and how those adjustments have actually helped the whole business become a much better business. So let's go and run the podcast. With employers, do employers see your vision or your lack of vision as well, how can he do the job? You've got to prove to me, and like anyone going into an interview has to prove that, yeah, they can do the job. But you would have had that extra challenge where you had to be able to say,
Yeah,
regardless.
I think I mean I think with employers it's an interesting one because you've got to not only prove yourself to be able to do the job based on their selection criteria, but you've also got to be able to prove that you can overcome the barriers that your blindness brings with that.
Yeah.
To actually achieve that or achieve those tasks that are actually out that are part of that position description. So it's a really hard thing to actually balance when you're actually in a job interview, because you're not only trying to convey the information that you can do the job based on what your experience and your skills, but you also got to be mindful that you need to explain to them how you're actually able to do that position as a blind person. Where I think when I was working at Coles Mine, we weren't very sure how I was going to do the stuff because they were still using the old IBM 3270s.
Oh gosh. Okay. Yep.
And they'll go back to your day, Narelle, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yes.
And so yeah, we were interested to see whether back then what terminal programs would work with the screen reader, which was JAWS 4, I think 4.51 or something like that. We had to do a little bit of experimenting, playing around. There was a bit of JAWS scripting there for a little while. So there was a whole lot of factors that actually were achieved to actually allow me to do that job.
Yeah. So what are the aspects of leadership that you think are the most important?
Empathy is huge. Empathy is very, very important. Having an understanding of what other people are going through. Being in that space of uplifting and empowering the people around you rather than directing them in a way that makes them feel controlled or coerced. If you uplift and empower and have those people feeling like they have some autonomy in their own right and they have ownership of what it is that they're doing and working on, it makes all the difference to the outcomes that you have as a leader. It's so very important. Being aware to their needs and not assuming what their needs might be simply because you have an idea in your mind about what something might be. We can never assume around what people need. We have to ask that question and be prepared to really listen. So communicating very well is extremely important in your ability to lead and your ability to be that person who runs, whether it is your own business or someone else's business, whether it's in a corporation or in that space of entrepreneurship, doesn't matter. We're all in that business of leadership as we make our way through that journey. And even as a parent, even as an everyday citizen, there are leadership moments. Every person is a leader. They may not realize it, but every person is a leader in some aspect in their life. And all of these sorts of behaviors are absolutely pivotal to having good leadership.
But just the technology, I mean, I've seen how much it's involved us, over just a period of my injury has been, unbelievable, just in the technology of the chairs. And, I don't know, I'm sure we're keen. Well, I'm an editor, but I'm pretty keen to always learn about different technology and how people use it, and also I suppose to give people what my technology is and what sort of automation I have. Alan?
Yeah, so Patrick, going from having to relearn all that technology, learning to use it in a completely different way to the way you were using it, to being, as independent as you are, you work full time again. You're on a various committees around the joint, advocating and different things for people with disability. What type of technologies do you use every day to keep yourself independent? And I believe you've got a child. So, you've got homework to do there as well.
Yes. With the child sort of things, I'm just basically, I've got my chair, so I'm basically just a wheeling playground for her. A wheeling climbing frame. So it's just, so that's, but on the technology, we adapted my wheelchair for her. Like, we've got seats that sit on the front of it so she can sit there. Get towing points and stuff like that. With the work side of things, like I've got like a 3-screen computer thing at home. And I just don't only use the 3 screens. I'll use them a lot. And it's not just because I probably would use it before if I wouldn't have had this disability, but with the disability as well, I do my mouse with my chin. Okay. So how that works basically is my wheelchair is a chin controlled wheelchair. Yeah. So I move my wheelchair with my chin. But when I pull up to any device like a computer, I can then turn my chair into a Bluetooth and my chin controller becomes a mouse.
Okay.
So, yeah. So if I'm out and about, I can just press a button on my wheelchair. It goes to Bluetooth. I can pick what device it is. If it's my phone, I just press that, and then I can use my chin controller on my phone as a little mouse pointer.
Yeah.
And then do a click and drag and a click thing to stuff. And it's the same as a computer.
Isn't innovation unbelievably brilliant? I mean, what it allows us to do.
You think of disability employment, I know a lot of people would think of like Help Industries, the Endeavour Group. What are you really focusing on with disability employment? Are you looking at that sector, or what are you actually looking at?
So we look at getting people with disability employed into the open market. So that's our key focus, not the supported employment opportunities. I have a firm belief that we shouldn't be retiring anybody for life. I think that was a term that a colleague of mine that you had on the show mentioned once before, that after his injury and the recovery, he was told by the system around us, which was, he was given a DSP and he was basically told, don't worry, so you don't have to work. Just put that to the side and go and enjoy your life. And it was such for him, and even my family member who went through her own journey with her brain trauma injury, it's such a numbing and fearful thing that they face at that point, because there are people, most of us get a lot from our careers. I know that, it's part of who I am, the job that I do, and I like to know that I'm contributing to my family financially, to my community, and to have that taken away without that being something you get a choice in. I know that my colleague championed that, and he now works at Chapter One as well. And I just think that nobody should be retired for life. And I don't believe that we should ever be saying to someone how much or how little they can contribute. It should be about the person. It should be a person-centered service, and it should be about that individual guiding what that service looks like for them. So really proud to work with an organisation when we get to really empower that in the individual, and we then work directly with disability employment services providers and NDIS providers to support their clients in that journey. Our core focus is really around educating employers as well, because you can't help people with disability without getting employers to be allies in that process and actually be really positive and proactive in wanting to create a more inclusive workplace.
with employers, how do you find the employers? I mean, if you take someone like myself, yes, I've got a severe vision impairment. I do have a lot of skills, and I know for me, they considered that I couldn't work once nearly all my sight was gone. And the employer I was working with at the time really struggled to change the system so that I could continue working. How do you deal with that with employers?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's probably one of the hardest things we do. And I think the first thing we have to do is realize that we're a people-to-people business, in the sense that no two employers will have the same response when we go out there to promote our service and promote inclusivity. Some employers will have a very honest fear of risk of the person's safety, or perhaps other workers' safety in the workplace. Some employers just lack understanding about what that means. And I think many employers, and even people that we talk to, if you say the word disability, many of them think about, the most serious physical disabilities. They'll immediately have a picture of someone who is wheelchair, living life in a wheelchair, or someone who is on crutches, or someone who, very significant disabilities. Very few employers immediately think, well, 50% of the people that are engaging in these services to come back to work actually have a mental health disability or condition. And so they're all immediately sort of not aware of a very large talent pool of people that can definitely contribute to their workplace, because there's that immediate image. How we go about our job is relationship building. A lot of the time it starts with a phone call or a networking event, which I think is how we met. And it's just pushes our people to be champions for that change all the time, and to really come out on the forefront and talk about with pride that we work with people with disability. And we don't shy away from that conversation. Sometimes people go a bit quiet, you hear crickets in the background, but it's really important to us that we advocate. All too often we leave it to the people with disability to advocate for themselves. And I think that'd be a very lonely place. So how we engage employers is we're very much on the front foot. We go out there and actively start conversations about that. And we then try to learn what their fears or mindsets are and how we can support change. So it's usually a very slow process, but it's a worthwhile process, because when we get those employers and we get those placements, it's a really great feeling for everyone involved.
What type of changes? So what are the differences that you encourage employers to do to take on a person with a disability?
Well, so the first thing is that I talk to them about, what the research says about employing people with disability. So there is evidence out there that says that employing people with disability is a great economic decision for a business, because they have they're more loyal workforce. They are retained for longer. They have on average less sick days. These people are more generally innovative and greater at problem solving, because they have to do that as part of their everyday lives to navigate obstacles in their community. So that's the first thing that I go to them about, and then we start talking about the structural stuff of their business. So what policies and procedures do you have in place, if any? What practices do you have in place in terms of inclusive recruitment and onboarding skills? What programs do you have in place once you've onboarded the person with disability to help them remain engaged and be able to connect with the supports that they may need if they are requesting reasonable adjustments? They're not always going to be requesting reasonable adjustments, but in some cases they may. And in most cases, those reasonable adjustments are very cost effective. And you may also be able to claim reimbursement for those reasonable adjustments through job access as well.
The ADHD brain just processes so quickly that if you're giving them all this information at once, it just can't just can't focus on all of that information. So giving them one step at a time, and I had to really find that I did that very differently. Because you'd say to a child in the morning, like, well, we're past that now, but going back, you'd say to a child, all right, go get your uniform on, go get your shoes on, go brush your teeth and brush your hair, and let's get out the door. And for an ADHD kid, that's like, whoa, that's just, what are you talking about? It all blends in together and they do nothing because it just goes into overwhelm. So I literally had to stop myself and say, all right, you need to go put your uniform on. When that was done, now you need to go put your shoes on. Now you need to go brush your teeth. So really stage it out. So then it gives that, it slows that kind of processing down to be able to understand the steps and what to do.
So how have you taken that approach and applied it to your team and in your everyday work?
I think I've used it every day as a natural now, because it's just something that, I've got used to. I guess I had to retrain myself, because I reckon maybe I'm a little bit ADHD. I haven't been tested, but could be. So I've kind of just rushed into doing things as well. But if I take it back and step it back, even down to goal setting for the business, I know my end goal, and then we work it back with both, and the team set goals as well. So we know the end goal, and then we work it back over the business in what we're going to do week by week to get to that end goal. And again, that sounds quite simple, but we're all thinking ahead and we're all racing, regardless of whether we're neurodivergent or not. We're all got 10 million things going on in our head, especially if we're mums. And so to be able to break it down and go, right, this is what I'm doing this week, this is what I'm doing next week. And the team work like that as well. And then, of course, within that, we have tasks that I have to do each week and things like that they're checking off your checklists and stuff like that.
Wow, Patrick, that was one informative podcast. Thanks again. I don't know whether you knew you were going to be dumped in like I've done. I appreciated your time, Patrick, because I don't think people realise just how much technology has changed the world for people with disability.
Yes, most definitely. Yeah. And it's also, definitely made inclusion a lot easier. So, definitely good time to have technology.
Yeah. And I think it's also made life much easier for employers, because there's so much they can do with very little cost or no extra cost to bring in people with disability, get great employees that really want to work. Let's face it, you and I are good examples of that, because we both love working. We could choose to sit on the pension. We don't. We want to work.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So, Patrick, how can anyone, if they want to find out more about employing people with disability, how can they contact you?
They could contact our organisation, Chapter 1 Employment. Definitely. They can also, I'm happy for you to give my details and my phone number and email address, or Rebecca's. And Rebecca's, she does a lot of the placement and also training specialists. So, she organises different types of training and programs. She's very, well adapted in that area. So organisations that, maybe want to do some training, and, employers that want to do some training to get people with disabilities in.
Yeah.
So, but look, happy to have a chat, as I'm pretty sure one of our placement specialists would be there to have a chat, and we can go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. And I think our final message, I think from both of us, don't be afraid of employing a person with disability. Look at the opportunities it brings you. Paula Burgess made the best point, didn't she, when she pointed out that the changes that she made to employ a person with disability has benefited the whole of the company that she runs, because it's made the company more efficient.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah. So that's today's episode of the Digital Access Show. Again, thank you very much, Patrick Dillon, for jumping in and helping me with this. I was a bit lost for words. Please.
Thank you very much.
Like, subscribe, review, share. We'd love a Google review or any review. Tell us what you think. And we'll see you next time on the Digital Access Show.